The night was cold and endless. The rain fell hard over the broken colony world, turning dust into mud and metal into rust. The streets were quiet except for the soft hum of flickering streetlights and the distant echo of thunder. Eli Grant walked slowly through the ruins, his coat pulled tight around his shoulders. He was tired, not just from travel but from life itself. A lone trader carrying old supplies and small pieces of tech, he had come to this forgotten planet to sell what little he had left. But what he saw instead was something that stopped him in his tracks. By the wall of a shattered building, a small alien girl sat alone in the rain. Her silver-blue skin shimmered faintly under the lightning, her legs pulled close to her chest. She was barefoot, her tiny feet pressed against the wet ground, trembling from the cold. Eli stared for a moment. Refugees were common here, families that had escaped war between alien empires. But this one looked no older than 10. Her clothes were torn, her eyes dull from hunger and fear. He looked around. People passed her without a glance. They stepped over puddles but ignored the child sitting in the middle of one. To them, she was invisible and just another piece of this dying world. Eli sighed. "Damn it," he muttered softly, setting his bag down. He knelt beside her.
"Hey, kid. You okay?"
The girl looked up, startled. Her eyes were wide and luminous, glowing faintly under the rain. She didn't answer, just hugged her knees tighter. He tried again, softer this time. "You'll freeze if you stay out here." Still no reply. The rain drummed on his shoulders, soaking through his coat. He noticed her feet again, cracked and bleeding slightly, skin flaking from cold. Without thinking twice, Eli untied his boots. They were old and heavy, but still warm. He pulled them off and gently lifted one of her feet. The girl flinched, expecting pain, but he only smiled. "Easy, just helping." He slipped the boots onto her feet, one after another. They were too big, of course, but when she stood up, the water didn't reach her skin anymore. "There," he said with a small grin. Not perfect, but better than nothing. For a long moment, the girl just stared at him. The rain slowed, and a faint warmth seemed to pass between them. Something quiet, human, and impossible to measure. Finally, she spoke in a trembling whisper. "Why?" Eli blinked. "Why what? Why?" "You give me?" she asked, her alien accent struggling with the words. He looked at her, confused for a second. Then he smiled sadly. "Because you looked cold, kid. That's all." The girl tilted her head as if trying to understand something far bigger than the moment. Her eyes shimmered brighter, and for the first time a small smile touched her lips. She whispered something in her own language, soft, melodic, like a song carried by the wind. Eli didn't understand a word, but it felt peaceful. He stood up, brushing mud from his pants. "You should find shelter. There's an old storage bay across the road. It's dry inside." The girl nodded slightly. She looked at him again as if memorizing his face. Then she ran off through the rain, her small form vanishing into the shadows. Eli watched her go, then sighed again. "What a crazy world," he muttered. He picked up his bag and walked toward his ship, a rusted cargo hauler parked at the edge of the settlement. When he entered, the inside was dimly lit, humming softly. He threw his wet coat over a chair and collapsed onto his bunk. Shoes gone, credits low, and still playing hero, he joked to himself. "You're a real genius, Eli." He closed his eyes, listening to the rain outside. But something strange happened. A faint sound came from his console, a soft beep, then a shimmer of static. He frowned and sat up. "What the—" The radar screen flickered. For a split second it showed an image, not of a ship, but of a symbol. A glowing insignia shaped like a sun, then it vanished. He tapped the console, thinking it was just interference. But far above the clouds, beyond his sight, something ancient stirred. High in orbit, a massive alien ship hovered silently. Its sensors had picked up the same moment, a human bending down, giving warmth to one of their kind. The footage spread through encrypted channels faster than light. In a throne chamber of blue glass, a tall alien woman, the High Matron Isha, stared at the screen. She saw the child, the shoes, the human's face. Her eyes widened. "Is it true?" one of her guards asked softly. She nodded slowly. "After all these cycles, a human shows mercy to a Valari child." The guard bowed his head in silence. The matron whispered almost to herself. "The prophecy said, when the cold is warmed by another's hand, the stars will kneel again." Lightning flashed across the world below, Eli had already fallen asleep in his bunk, unaware that his simple act of kindness had reached the stars. And outside his ship, the rain began to stop, but somewhere deep in the clouds, a strange hum grew louder, a sound like a heartbeat made of thunder. The air shimmered. Distant lights blinked in the sky. Something, or someone, was coming. The rain had stopped by morning, but the air still smelled of thunder. Eli Grant woke to a soft humming sound inside his small ship. The dashboard lights blinked, one after another, like someone had touched every control during the night. He rubbed his eyes and checked the radar. No signal, no visitors. Yet something felt wrong. Outside, the gray sky shimmered faintly like it was alive. The colony world was quiet again, too quiet. Normally, traders and refugees would be walking by this hour, but not today. He stepped out of the ship, stretching his arms. The ground was still wet, shining like glass. His bare feet sank into the mud. "Guess I'll need new shoes," he murmured with a tired grin. As he looked around, a faint echo came from the hills. Not thunder, not wind, but something mechanical. He turned toward the sound, squinting at the horizon. For a second, he saw a silver glint moving across the clouds. Then it vanished. Probably just a drone, he said to himself. But deep inside, his chest tightened. He didn't know that hundreds of kilometers above him a fleet was gathering. In orbit, 20 giant ships hovered silently above the planet. Their hulls glowed like polished mirrors, reflecting the pale sun. Each one belonged to the Valari Dominion, an ancient alien empire known for its power and pride. Inside the command deck of the lead ship, High Matron Aisha stood before a floating screen. The image replayed again and again, a human removing his boots and giving them to a barefoot alien child. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with emotion. "Run it again," she said. A soft chime filled the room, and the hologram repeated, Eli's simple act of kindness, captured by a hidden surveillance drone the night before. Around her, advisors and officers stood in silence. One of them, a tall figure with golden eyes, finally spoke. "Matron, this is meaningless. He is just a human, a scavenger, not a prophet." Isha turned her head slowly toward him. "Meaningless?" Her tone was soft but sharp as glass. "You see only mud and trade. I see the light of origin, the kindness our kind forgot long ago." The officer lowered his eyes. No one dared argue further. Back on the planet, Eli had walked into the settlement market, hoping to trade a few spare batteries. But the people acted strangely. Some whispered as he passed. Others stared like he was a ghost. A shopkeeper refused to take his credits, muttering, "The sky watched you, human." Eli frowned. "What did you say?" But the shopkeeper only closed the stall and stepped back in fear. He walked away, shaking his head. "People here have lost it." As he crossed the square, he noticed small metal drones floating high above the rooftops, black spheres with blue eyes scanning the crowd. One paused in the air and turned toward him. It hovered silently, watching. Eli stopped walking. "You want something?" he said, half joking. The drone beeped once, then projected a faint light onto his chest, a circle of moving symbols. It scanned his heart rate, his breath, even the mud on his legs. Then, just as suddenly, it flew away into the clouds. Eli stared after it, confused. Okay, that's not normal. He turned back to his ship. Something inside him whispered that he needed to leave this planet soon. But before he could start the engines, the sky began to glow. Up above, the Valari fleet received the scan. Their system confirmed it. Heart frequency, pure spectrum, the rare energy once believed to belong only to ancient Valari saints. The matron's eyes widened. "It's him, matron," said her advisor carefully. "If this is true, our traditions say he must be honored." She nodded slowly. "No, he must be protected." She turned toward the great viewport. "Prepare descent protocols. I will greet him myself." The ships shifted, breaking formation. The clouds began to swirl, glowing silver and blue. To those below, it looked like dawn was falling all over again. Eli ran outside as the ground shook. The sky above him burst open with light, streaks of fire and energy cutting through the clouds. The sound was deafening. He shielded his eyes, heart pounding. "What the hell is happening?" he shouted. All around him, the villagers dropped to their knees, trembling. Some covered their faces. A child cried out, "The Sky Mothers are coming." Eli backed away toward his ship, staring upward. The light grew stronger, turning the gray sky into molten gold. Then through the clouds he saw them, massive alien ships, shaped like wings of glass. They moved slowly, silently, surrounding the colony like guardians of a forgotten temple. One descended lower than the rest, landing just beyond the village. The air shook as dust rose in waves. Eli stood frozen. No way. The ramp opened and a group of tall figures stepped out, their skin glimmering like liquid silver. At the front was a woman, regal, calm, with eyes that glowed faintly blue. She looked directly at him. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the alien woman bowed her head, not in arrogance but in deep, deliberate respect. Behind her, hundreds of soldiers followed, lowering their weapons and kneeling on one knee. The crowd gasped. Eli felt his knees weaken. What is this?" he whispered. The woman finally spoke, her voice calm and echoing like wind over stone. "You gave warmth to one of my daughters," she said. "And for that, the Valari Dominion bows." Eli's mouth fell open, words lost in his throat. The wind carried the smell of ozone and rain. Somewhere above, the remaining ships tilted slightly, as if nodding to the human below. In that silent, trembling moment, Eli realized that his small act of kindness had started something far bigger than he could ever imagine. The stars, it seemed, were watching, and they had decided to kneel. The morning light was strange that day, golden, sharp and heavy with silence. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars, glowing from the reflection of the ships above. The people of the colony had never seen anything like it. The sky itself looked alive. Eli stood barefoot on the muddy ground, staring at the army that filled the horizon. Giant ships floated like mountains in the clouds, their hulls shining silver and blue. The air pulsed with quiet power. Every living thing, and every man, woman, and child, had dropped to their knees. Everyone but Eli. He didn't move. Couldn't move, his heart beat fast. He was a simple trader, a man who had once sold spare parts and broken tech just to survive. But now a fleet of alien warships, each big enough to crush cities, was kneeling to him. The alien woman at the front, the same one who had bowed to him, slowly stepped closer. Her movements were smooth and graceful, like waves moving across still water. Her long silver robes shimmered in the sunlight. Eli's mouth felt dry. Who are you?" The woman looked at him calmly. "I am High Matron Aisha of the Valari Dominion," she said. Her voice was soft but strong, echoing slightly, like two tones speaking in harmony. "And you, human, are the one our prophecy spoke of." Eli blinked in confusion. "Prophecy? You must have the wrong guy." The matron smiled faintly, sadness hiding behind her calm face. "There are no mistakes written in the stars." Behind her, thousands of soldiers in silver armor bowed their heads lower. Their voices rose in a soft, vibrating chant. Eli didn't understand the words, but he felt their weight, ancient, reverent, almost holy. He took a step back. "Listen, I didn't do anything. I just gave a kid some shoes." "That's it." The matron raised her hand and the chanting stopped instantly. "And in that act," she said, "you restored what we lost. Empathy." Her words hit him like thunder. He wanted to laugh, to shout that it was crazy. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw no madness, only gratitude. She gestured toward a small figure beside her, the same alien girl from the night before. She was now dressed in clean, glowing fabric, her silver hair brushed neatly. She looked up at him with shy eyes and said softly, "You gave me warmth." Eli froze. The memory of her sitting in the rain came rushing back. "Kid, you?" The girl nodded. "My name is Lyra." The matron placed a hand gently on Lyra's shoulder. "My youngest daughter," she said. "She told me of your kindness. It spread through our channels within minutes. The galaxy watches kindness rarely, so when it appears, it shines brighter than war." Eli didn't know what to say. He had spent his whole life watching the universe break itself apart over greed and pride. To him, kindness was just what people should do. Nothing special. But now this act had made alien warlords kneel. He shook his head slowly. "You don't need to bow to me. I'm no hero. I'm just me." The matron looked around her, then lifted her eyes to the sky. "The Valari kneel not to flesh," she said. "We kneel to light, and you carry it." The soldiers raised their spears in unison, the sound like a storm breaking the silence. The ground trembled lightly under the weight of their devotion. Eli's throat tightened. For a second he felt like he didn't belong in his own skin. All this for a pair of shoes. All this for one small kindness in a universe that had forgotten how to be kind. As the sun rose higher, the ships in the sky began to move. They arranged themselves in perfect circles, their blue engines forming patterns in the clouds. A symbol appeared, the same one that had flickered on Eli's radar the night before. A radiant sun. The villagers gasped. Some began to pray, the air filled with a deep hum, not from engines but from energy fields synchronizing across space. The matron turned to him again. You are now bound by fate, human. Your name will travel faster than any ship. Your gesture will become a law among my people. Eli frowned. A law? What kind of law? She smiled faintly. A law of mercy. From this day no Valari shall let a child go cold. Her words echoed across the square. Every soldier repeated it in their language, a chant that grew louder and louder until the air seemed to vibrate with it. Eli stood there, surrounded by power and awe, but he didn't feel like a god. He felt small, human, fragile, and yet somehow that smallness had changed everything. A quiet moment followed. The matron's expression softened. We will not force you, Eli Grant, but the Dominion wishes to honor you. Come with us. We have much to show you. He hesitated, glancing back at his ship, his old, rusted, faithful home. It looked like a toy compared to the shining vessels around him. And if I say no? He asked. The matron bowed slightly. Then we will still bow every dawn in your honor. Because kindness does not ask permission, it gives freely. He exhaled slowly. He didn't understand this world, but something inside told him this wasn't just about him anymore. Maybe this was about what humans could be, what they were meant to be. He nodded once. All right, I'll come, the matron smiled. Then let the stars bear witness. As he stepped toward the massive ramp, the soldiers struck the ground with their spears once more, a sound like a heartbeat echoing through the sky. The ships began to rise, engines glowing brighter. Eli glanced back one last time at the colony. The mud, the silence, the place where it all began. He didn't know it yet, but from this day forward, every sunrise across the Valari Dominion would begin with the same words whispered by children, warriors, and kings alike. Give warmth where there is cold. The interior of the Valari flagship was vast, unlike anything Eli had ever seen. The walls shimmered like liquid silver, reflecting lights that seemed to bend around him. He walked cautiously, feeling the weight of every gaze upon him. Thousands of eyes, all alien, all studying his every move. High Matron Aisha led the way, her robes whispering against the polished floor. Lyra ran ahead, her small hands brushing the sides of the hall, eyes wide in wonder. The child seemed completely at home, while Eli felt like he had stepped into another world entirely. You are far from home, human, Isha said, her voice calm but carrying authority. And yet your actions have traveled farther than any fleet. Eli swallowed. I didn't do anything special. Just gave her shoes. That's all. The matron smiled faintly, her expression both kind and heavy with history. To us it is everything. For centuries the Valari have sought power and conquest. We forgot what it means to care, to give without gain. Your gift reminded us. He shook his head, still trying to process it all. And that's why you bowed? Why all your ships? Isha's eyes softened as she looked at him. Yes. The act itself carries more weight than the intention behind it. A heart that gives freely is rare, human, and so we honor it. Eli could feel the gravity of her words. In his own small world, a gift was just a gift. But here a single moment had shifted the course of an empire. He felt both powerful and terrified. The group entered a massive chamber. Holographic maps of planets, stars, and fleets floated above the floor, spinning slowly. Advisors and council members stood around, whispering in their language. When they saw Eli, they froze. Some bowed. Others avoided his gaze entirely. Isha gestured to a seat at the center of the chamber. Sit if you wish. The Dominion wishes to explain what has happened. Eli hesitated, then sat. Lyra climbed onto a nearby platform and watched him curiously, her glowing eyes filled with trust. A holographic display flickered to life. It showed countless records of Valari history, wars, betrayals, and victories, but also moments of mercy long forgotten. Aisha pointed to one image of an ancient hero, a Valari saint. Our people once believed in compassion. That hero saved an entire fleet through kindness alone. Since then, we have hunted, conquered, and forgotten. You have reminded us of who we were. Eli leaned back, rubbing his eyes. I'm just one guy. How can one small act do all that? Isha's gaze was steady. One act can ripple across generations. The world watches what it seldom sees. A single heart, pure in intention, can shift empires. Her words hung in the air. Eli felt a mixture of pride and fear. This was far beyond trading parts or surviving day to day. He had stepped into a role he never asked for. A role that carried expectations heavier than the ships around him. The room shifted as the council began to speak. Officers with glowing insignias raised points of caution. Matron, one said, we cannot simply allow a human to walk freely among us. What if he deceives us? What if his mercy is a trap? Aisha turned sharply, her silver hair catching the light. Do not mistake fear for wisdom. His actions speak louder than your doubts. We bow to what we see, a heart unbroken by greed or pride. That is all we require. Eli's stomach churned. He had never been praised like this, never trusted. All his life people had counted his failures, ignored his good deeds, and now an entire empire was holding him accountable for being kind. He looked at Lyra, who was still watching quietly. Her small hand reached for his. He grasped it, feeling her trust anchoring him. You must understand, Eli Grant, Aisha said softly. Your presence here carries responsibility. The Dominion will follow your example, but you must be mindful. There are those who will resist, those who see kindness as weakness. Eli nodded slowly, absorbing every word. I'll do my best, but I'm no commander, no diplomat. I'm just a man who gave shoes. Isha's eyes glimmered. Then be that man. Let your heart lead. The rest will follow. The chamber doors opened suddenly and a group of Valari soldiers entered. They carried supplies, gifts, and small artifacts, offerings to honor him. Eli stepped back, overwhelmed by the gesture. Even Lyra looked surprised. This is too much, he whispered. Isha approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. The gift you gave is heavier than you know. It carries power, and power requires recognition, even if unwanted. Accept it, Eli Grant. Accept the weight of what you have started. He took a deep breath, feeling the strange pressure of history and expectation settle on his shoulders. This was no longer just about one barefoot girl. It was about changing a people, awakening something long buried. And deep inside he understood he could not turn back. The galaxy would never see him as the same man again. That night, Eli sat by a viewport looking at the stars. The Valari ships surrounded the planet, silent and vigilant. Lyra sat beside him, her small hand still holding his. I don't know if I can do this, he said quietly. You already have, she whispered. The truth settled in his chest like fire. One small act, a pair of shoes, a moment of warmth, had grown into a movement that would ripple across the stars. And Eli Grant, the simple human, carried the weight of that gift now. The stars above twinkled like eyes watching, waiting, and somewhere deep in the Valari Dominion, hearts stirred that had not stirred for centuries. A small, quiet smile touched Eli's lips. The journey was only beginning. The next morning, Eli woke to the low hum of the flagship. The halls were alive with movement, Valari officers and soldiers preparing for what he soon learned was called the human trial. The word alone made his stomach tighten. He had no idea humans could be judged like this, especially by aliens. High Matron Aisha appeared at his door, her silver robes flowing silently across the polished floor. Lyra followed closely behind, her small hand clutching his sleeve. Eli, Aisha said softly, the council wishes to evaluate you, not as a criminal, but as a symbol. Many doubt the purity of your intentions. You must stand before them. Eli blinked. Evaluate me? I didn't do anything except give her shoes. Shoes, the matron's eyes glimmered. To them that is dangerous. A human showing compassion is unusual. They question your heart. Lyra squeezed his hand. They don't understand you, Eli, but I do. The trial chamber was immense. Its ceiling seemed to disappear into darkness, supported by pillars of glowing metal. Council members floated in small platforms above the floor, their eyes piercing, unblinking. Eli's legs trembled as he stepped inside. Eli Grant, a booming voice echoed. You stand accused of deception, of using kindness to manipulate the Valari Dominion. Eli's heart skipped a beat. I didn't manipulate anyone. I just... He trailed off, lost in the weight of their gaze. One counselor stepped forward. His eyes glowed gold, reflecting the lights above. How do we know this act is genuine? Humans are clever, cunning. You may have staged this to gain influence. You may wish to control our fleet. Eli shook his head. No, I swear. I gave her shoes because she was cold. That's it. Nothing else. The council murmured, debating among themselves. Their voices overlapped. A strange mix of tones and harmonics that made the chamber echo like a cave. The air was thick with tension, almost pressing against Eli's chest. High Matron Aisha raised a hand, silencing them. Enough. Her voice was firm yet calm. Let the human prove himself. Not through words, but through action. Eli's eyes widened. Action? Yes, Isha said. She gestured to a soldier injured during a training exercise. The Valari child had scraped their leg badly, and the wound was deep. Heal him if you can. Show your heart as we have witnessed it. Your words are not enough, Eli hesitated. He was not a doctor, not a healer, but he looked at the child. Silver skin, pale, eyes fearful, and something inside him moved. He knelt down beside the Valari, gently removing the armor that covered the wound. Lyra watched, eyes wide. She whispered, You can do it. Eli found a small medkit he had carried for emergencies. Carefully, he cleaned the cut, applied a salve, and wrapped it with cloth. The council watched silently, their glowing eyes fixed on every movement. When he finished, he stepped back. There, he said quietly. I hope that's enough. The matron nodded slightly. Watch now. The child slowly stood. Pain eased, eyes brightened. Then, in an unexpected gesture, the Valari soldier knelt, not just out of respect, but out of awe. The council members leaned forward, murmuring in their language. One by one, more soldiers were brought forward. Small injuries, minor ailments, or even emotional distress. Each time Eli helped without hesitation. He offered water, comforted the fearful, and even shared stories of his home planet. Strange tales that made the soldiers laugh and relax. By the end of the day, the council was silent. The proof was undeniable. Eli had done nothing for reward, nothing for power. His heart was open, sincere, unbroken. High Matron Isha spoke again, her voice echoing through the chamber. See now. He carries the first light, the kindness that restores hearts and changes the world. No counselor can argue with truth that is acted upon, not spoken. The officers bowed their heads. Even those who had doubted him could no longer deny what they had witnessed. Eli felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. He had survived, not through cleverness or strength, but through simple acts of compassion. After the trial, the matron approached him. Eli Grant, she said softly, your name will now be remembered. The Valari will follow your example. But be warned, not all hearts are ready for kindness. Some will resist. Some will try to challenge it. You must remain vigilant, he nodded. I never wanted any of this. I just wanted to help a child. Isha smiled, a rare warmth in her eyes. And in doing so, you have reshaped an empire. You have given them hope, human. That is a gift heavier than any sword. Lyra ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. You passed the trial, she exclaimed. Her small voice echoed in the chamber, bright and clear. Eli knelt to her level. We passed it together, he said softly. Above them, the stars twinkled through the skylights of the flagship. Somewhere far away, the other ships of the Valari Dominion shifted, sensors and engines aligning as if acknowledging the verdict. The universe itself seemed to hum in approval. Eli stood up slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was no longer just a traitor. He was a symbol, a beacon. Every choice, every small act would now ripple across the stars, and for the first time, he realized the smallest gesture of kindness could carry the heaviest weight. The night aboard the Valari flagship was quiet, almost peaceful. The corridors glimmered under soft silver light, and Eli had finally allowed himself to rest. Lyra lay curled beside him, her small body rising and falling with each calm breath. For the first time since arriving in this alien empire, he felt a fleeting sense of safety. But peace, Eli had learned long ago, was often a brief illusion. A sudden vibration shook the floor. The ship's warning lights flashed red, accompanied by an alarm that thrummed in every metal wall. Eli bolted upright. Lyra's eyes opened wide. Stay close to me, Eli whispered, grabbing her hand. Through the viewport, he could see streaks of fire slicing across the stars. Smaller ships, black as night, darted around the flagship. Explosions lit up the dark void, and one of the enemy vessels struck a smaller Valari scout ship. Sparks erupted, and it tumbled silently into the void. "Attack!" a soldier shouted. The Valari crew scrambled, activating shields and energy cannons. Eli had never faced battle before. His heart pounded as adrenaline surged through him. He felt useless, just a human among these towering armored warriors. But instinct pushed him forward. The matron appeared beside him, calm as ever, her glowing eyes sharp in the red alert lights. "This attack is not random," she said. "They seek you, Eli Grant. Those who fear kindness often strike first." "What? Me?" Eli stammered. "I didn't do anything." They can't mean me." She shook her head. "They know what you represent. A human who restores faith. They see that as a threat to their control." Before he could respond, the hull of the ship trembled again. Eli grabbed a nearby railing as the flagship rolled slightly. Adjusting its shields, fire streaked past windows and distant explosions shook the decks. Eli's thoughts raced. He was unarmed, untrained, and entirely out of place. Yet every instinct inside him told him to protect Lyra. She had trusted him. She had believed in him. And now he had to act. "Follow me," he said, dragging her toward a safer section of the ship. Around them, soldiers fired at the attackers, their weapons humming with blue energy. Sparks and smoke filled the hallways, casting eerie shadows against the polished walls. A drone buzzed overhead, scanning them. Eli waved his hands, unsure what to do. The drone paused, then projected a faint holographic shield around him and Lyra, a temporary protective field deployed automatically by the ship. "Okay," he muttered. "I guess we're doing this." As the battle raged outside, Matron Isha coordinated the flagship's defenses. Her commands were sharp and precise, yet she kept glancing at Eli and Lyra. "Do not interfere," she instructed. "But observe, learn. Even now, your presence matters." Eli nodded, his jaw tight. He watched the Valari soldiers fight with precision, their loyalty unquestionable. Every move, every strike flowed like a dance, coordinated, powerful, and deadly. And he realized something. These soldiers weren't just following orders. They believed in the cause. They trusted him even without fully understanding why. The thought struck him hard. His small act, giving shoes, had inspired this loyalty. A human, unarmed, had earned the devotion of an entire fleet. An explosion rocked the deck above them. Sparks rained down, and one of the attackers' ships fired directly at the flagship's hull. A massive shudder ran through the ship, and alarms screamed louder. Eli stumbled but kept hold of Lyra. She looked at him, wide-eyed and trembling. "Are we going to die?" He swallowed hard. "No, we're not going to die. I won't let that happen." He didn't know if he could keep that promise, but he said it anyway. For her. Then came a quiet moment amidst the chaos. One of the attacking ships breached the outer defenses and was moments from hitting the main deck. Eli saw a group of soldiers aiming their energy rifles, ready to strike. Without thinking, he stepped forward. "Wait!" he shouted. "Stop! I'll draw them away." The soldiers froze, confused. Eli raised his arms, running toward the ramp leading to a smaller observation platform. He didn't have a weapon, didn't know if he could survive. But as he ran, he felt something surge inside him. A strange warmth, a determination stronger than fear. The attackers paused, sensing him. Perhaps it was courage they had never expected from a human. Or perhaps they were curious about the one who had united an empire through kindness. From the viewport, Eli saw the Valari ships behind him. They had not abandoned him. Instead, they formed a protective barrier, shielding him as he drew the attackers' attention away from the ship's core. The battle was fierce, but something had shifted. The enemy no longer attacked with blind aggression. Hesitation spread among them, confusion, the kind that comes when one realizes they are facing more than just a human. They were facing an idea, a force of loyalty and compassion that could not be destroyed by weapons. Eli felt his heart racing. Every strike, every dodge, every step was instinct. Yet he realized he was not alone. The Valari were with him. They trusted him. They followed him. And in that moment he understood the truth. Loyalty is stronger than fear. Courage is born not just from skill, but from belief in what is right. Hours later, when the last of the enemy ships was destroyed or forced to retreat, the flagship was battered but standing. Eli collapsed on the floor exhausted. Lyra ran to him, wrapping her arms around his chest. "You did it," she whispered. He looked up at her, breath coming in ragged gasps. "We did it," he said softly. "We survived." The matron appeared above them, looking down with a mixture of pride and relief. "Eli Grant," she said, "your courage has proven your heart. Not just to the Council, not just to the fleet, but to the galaxy itself. The Valari will remember this day forever." Eli closed his eyes, letting the exhaustion wash over him. For the first time in his life, he realized that one small act, giving warmth to a child, had grown into something far greater than he could have ever imagined. Above the flagship, the stars twinkled, watching silently. Somewhere in the universe, a story had begun, and Eli Grant was at its center. The galaxy was quiet now, but not still. Across the vast blackness of space, the Valari fleet shimmered like a field of silver stars, orbiting planets and moons in perfect formation. And at the center of it all was Eli Grant, a human who had never asked for greatness, yet had earned it by a single act of kindness. Eli stood on the observation deck of the flagship, the floor beneath him glowing faintly as sensors traced the movement of every ship outside. Lyra stood at his side, her small hand clutching his. Her silver eyes reflected the stars, bright and unwavering. "You really did it," she whispered. Eli shook his head, smiling faintly. "No, kid. We did it." For weeks the fleet had followed his guidance, and not commands but lessons learned from one human's heart. Soldiers protected the weak, medics attended to refugees, and councils across planets discussed mercy alongside law. A movement had begun, born from a pair of shoes and the courage to care. High Matron Isha approached quietly.
She had changed little, regal, calm, and impossibly powerful in presence.
Yet there was something soft in her eyes now, something that spoke of respect rather than authority. "Eli Grant," she said, "the Valari have decided to honor you in a way that few humans have ever experienced." He raised an eyebrow. "And what would that be?" She gestured to the vast viewport. Outside, the entire fleet slowly descended. Ships of all sizes, warships, transports, even ceremonial vessels, lowered themselves in unison. Thousands of soldiers poured onto the observation platforms, kneeling as one before him. Eli felt his knees weaken. This was more than awe, more than ceremony. It was reverence, a silent declaration of loyalty and gratitude. Lyra tugged his sleeve, whispering, "They're kneeling. For you. I don't know what to say," Eli admitted. "I'm just a guy who gave shoes to a child." The matron's smile was gentle. "And that is exactly why they kneel. You reminded us that strength is not measured by power alone, but by compassion. You have restored faith to an entire empire." As Eli looked over the kneeling fleet, his thoughts drifted back to that rainy night on the ruined colony. One small act unnoticed by most had become the spark that lit a galaxy. He remembered the way Lyra had looked at him, trusting, vulnerable and hopeful. And in that moment he understood. Heroism was not about battles won or empires conquered. It was about the courage to care, even when the world was indifferent. A soft hum filled the room as the fleet's ships emitted a synchronized signal, a song of honor, vibrating across space. It was unlike anything Eli had heard, melodic, powerful, and full of emotion. He closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. "I never imagined this," he whispered. "You never imagined kindness could ripple this far," Aisha said. The matron guided him toward the ceremonial chamber. Inside, historical records of the Valari Empire displayed a lineage of rulers, warriors, and saints. Now his name was etched among them, not as a conqueror but as a healer of hearts. Lyra jumped onto the platform beside him. "They'll remember you forever," she said softly. Eli looked at her, chest swelling with emotion. "No, we'll be remembered because you reminded me what matters. That one small act can change everything," the matron nodded. "And now it will. The Valari will honor every sunrise in your name, every act of kindness in your example. Your legacy begins here, human, but it will reach beyond these stars." Outside, the sun rose over the colony world, casting golden light across the wet streets where it had all begun. Villagers stepped out of their homes, watching the fleet above. Some remembered Eli's presence, some had only heard whispers. Yet all bowed slightly, a silent tribute to the human who had made an empire kneel. Eli stepped onto the balcony, feeling the wind brush past him. He could see the fleet in formation, each ship lowering itself in synchronized respect. The sheer magnitude of it made his heart pound. Lyra reached up and held his hand. They're not just bowing, they're pledging loyalty. Eli looked at her, swallowing hard. I never asked for loyalty. I just wanted a child to be warm. And that was enough, she said simply. That evening, as stars glimmered like scattered jewels across the dark sky, Eli sat quietly in the command chamber. The fleet had returned to their stations, but the energy of their devotion lingered. Every soldier, every ship carried the memory of a human who had given warmth, and in doing so restored hope. Isha stood nearby, watching him. Do you understand now, Eli Grant? She asked softly. You have shown that even the smallest gestures can bend destiny. Eli nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the twinkling stars. I understand, but I still feel small compared to all of this, the matron smiled. Even the smallest light can shine across the darkest night. You have reminded us of that truth. And so the legend of Eli Grant began. Across planets and moons, his story spread. The human who gave shoes to a barefoot alien girl and in return, inspired an entire empire to bow, to protect, and to remember. The Valari Dominion changed forever, guided by mercy, empathy, and the example of a single human. Eli stood beside Lyra, looking at the stars. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, other children would be warmed by acts of kindness, other empires softened by compassion, and he understood now that heroism was never about might or glory. It was about the courage to care when no one else would. A soft smile crossed his face. He had not sought greatness, yet greatness had found him, and the stars in their silent, eternal watch seemed to shine just a little brighter that night.